Afternoon Adventures. A while back I made a video about Battlemaster maneuvers that are applicable to any character, not just people using weapons, and with the 2024 PHB release, that list has gotten much longer and has even opened up to some maneuvers applying to spells themselves. So I want to revisit the topic and talk about some Battlemaster stuff that works for Battlecasters. First of all, I want to recap the maneuvers that don't use attack rolls at all, as some of them have been tweaked a bit in the new rules. Let's start with Ambush, Tactical Assessment, and Commanding Presence, which all function the same way. They allow us to simply add our superiority die to the result of an ability check. Now, I'll put which ones are which up on the screen somewhere, but I also want to point out the Tactical Mind feature that all fighters get at level 2 now applies our 1d10 from our second wind to an ability check, specifically one that we fail, and that can stack on top of these maneuvers. So we can potentially add 2 dice to our d20 roll, which is huge. Unless we have allies with crazy initiative bonuses, or we're fighting some of the newer high CR monsters that have crazy bonuses, where we can pretty much guaranteed go first in initiative with Ambush if we want to. Moving right along, Bait and Switch works the way it always has. We swap places with an ally, one of us gains AC, and that's going to be good as a defensive move if someone runs up to us and an ally runs up to them, well, to us also. We can get ourselves out of dodge, or get ourselves into dodge if we want, depending on what our character is for. Evasive Footwork also increases our AC. Now it also lets us disengage as a bonus action. So both those things combined are a pretty good mix of defensive features and move us around the battlefield pretty effectively. Unarmed Strike, now it doesn't require a bonus action, which is wonderful, and any creature can use the attack action, so there's nothing stopping us from using Unarmed Strike, even if we're not holding a weapon. Sometimes, if we were just gonna cast a cantrip or some such, allowing our party rogue, or really anyone we want, to attack as a reaction might be a stronger move in the moment. Parry reduces damage from an attack coming at us. That's always gonna be good, especially since casters aren't always known for being the tankiest. Rally gives an ally temporary hit points. It's a bonus action as well, equal to the die roll on our superiority die plus half our fighter level. That number is not going to be as high for us if we're only taking a little dip in fighter, but it's still a good way to protect our allies with the resources we have on hand. Also, since temporary hit points go away at the end of a long rest, and we get superiority dice back on a short rest, this could be a good way to spend those dice before we rest, give our allies a long-term buff. And I also want to mention in this category Lunging Attack, even though that one does apply to attack rolls a bit. It allows us to dash as a bonus action, whether we make an attack or not on our turn. So that's always going to be a useful option. And if we use the attack action on our turn and make an attack, we get to deal some extra damage. That requires the attack action specifically, and casting a cantrip uses the magic action. So that's not going to be compatible unless our character is a Valor Bard or Blade Singer. They can replace one of their attacks with a cantrip, so we could stack the extra superiority die of damage onto that cantrip if we want. Those classes also have extra attacks, so we could just stack the damage on our normal attack instead of the cantrip. Either way. I would say Eldritch Knight as well, but we're already a Blade Master, so that doesn't apply. So that's mostly what I covered in my old video, but there are more maneuvers that apply now than ever, because there are some that say when you hit with an attack roll instead of hit a creature with a weapon or unarmed strike. So those actually apply to spells now, both cantrips and leveled spells. There aren't many features in the game that increase spell damage, so these are actually pretty potent. Disarming Attack, let's start with. You get to knock an enemy's weapon out of their hand. This now works with any spell that has an attack roll. So when we're firebolting a guy, we can also knock the sword out of his hand. Distracting Strike can turn any spell into a pseudo guiding bolt, and that the next attack against that creature by someone other than us has advantage. Technically, we can actually apply this to Guiding Bolt, but I don't think that does anything extra for us, except for adding the damage, of course. Fainting Attack It's a bonus action to use it. You choose a target within 5 feet of you. Unfortunately, it is that sort of melee range. And the next time we attack them on the same turn, we get to add the damage, and the attack has advantage. Technically, there's also nothing saying we can't use Fainting Attack and then step back so we don't have disadvantage on our ranged attacks. That is an option, but under most circumstances, it's going to cost us an opportunity attack, so who knows if it's worth it. Goading Attack gives the target disadvantage on other creatures besides us, which could be really good if we're really far away. Means that if we're firebolting someone from 120 feet and they can't reach us next turn, they're just going to have disadvantage on whoever they do attack. That doesn't apply, of course, if they have a ranged weapon or spells as well, but you say, Livy, know your enemies, I guess. Maneuvering Attack helps allies reposition, possibly a little niche in its usage, but it can also let our melee allies get into range of their targets. In other words, every little bit helps. I also enjoy the mental image of a wizard or cleric probably, or anyone else, taking on sort of a tactician role. So between this and Commander Strike saying, you move over there, you attack that. I think these could be a very fun pair of maneuvers to use in tandem with each other for our spellcaster character. Menacing Attack lets us frighten an enemy. Being frightened is a pretty serious debuff in this game, so doing that to our enemies with our spells is all the better. And Precision Attack, which now applies specifically when you miss with an attack roll. You don't have to guess at it anymore, which is great. It also means that our very powerful spells, like a heavily upcast Chromatic Orb, for example, have a much easier time hitting as we're adding superiority dice to the attack roll. That was unfortunately the last one because Pushing Attack, Riposte, Sweeping Attack, and Trip Attack all require weapons or unarmed strikes, which could still apply to some characters, but probably not to others. Something like a Pact of the Blade Warlock could work really well still, but something like a cleric who doesn't even carry a weapon, it's not going to work out. That all said, 3 levels in Fighter for the Battlemaster subclass is an investment for any character, for sure, but given these maneuvers that make spells more powerful and the other features we get from Fighter, like Second Wind and Action Surge, which doesn't let us cast 2 spells anymore, unfortunately, but it's still a good feature. All of that together makes the Fighter dip a pretty strong package still, even for non-martial characters, I think. Anyway, that's all I wanted to say. Hopefully this sparks inspiration for y'all, and I will see you in the next one. Like and subscribe or whatever, I don't know. Happy adventuring.